Welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish, the podcast where we sit down with neighbors, experts, and friends to explore the stories, the questions, and the big little issues that shape life in our town, one conversation at a time. This week, we're talking with Paul Curry about the challenges of running a small business here in Antigonish. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish. It's me, Justin.
And this is Anuj.
Your co-hosts. And today we're talking with Paul Curry, the president of the Antigonish Chamber of Commerce and also a local business owner. Paul, can you first of all, hello.
Hi there.
And tell us about your business.
So my business, I run the Claymore Inn and the Justamere Café in Antigonish. So Claymore Inn is a hotel. We also have long-term rentals there. It's been operating. Actually, my father ran it for about 40 years, and I took it over in 2020. Thought it'd be a good time to take over a hotel
Just
in the middle
as
of
the
the
COVID was
pandemic.
coming.
Yeah.
Well, it was empty a lot then, and I was kind of surprised when people started showing up again. I think, oh yeah, this is what it's supposed to be like after things were lifted and whatnot. So and the restaurant as well. Justamere is a pretty well-known restaurant in Antigonish. It's really popular for breakfast, but do all kinds of meals. We have a bakery running out of there. We're open for dinner. We do shows sometimes. So those are the main businesses. And we have conferences and things like that, conference center.
Yeah. So we wanted you on to speak about running a business in this town, but you had also gotten, we know about you. You're like a known entity, but you had gotten in touch with us when we had done that episode on immigration.
Yes.
And you're like, yeah, and you were chiming in to say, it is very difficult as a business owner to hire a foreign worker.
Yeah.
So let us start there. We did a whole episode, Anuj, on foreign, permanent residency and trying to get it and how difficult it is as an immigrant these days.
Yeah. And just to kind of set the stage a little, when we posted that, we had a couple of people and a couple of comments, who have different views on that. Not everybody is wanting new immigrants and new people here. And yet there are, small business realities and other realities. So, we'd love to have your take on what do you think?
Sure. And let's be honest, I was taking advantage of an opportunity to vent to you guys, and I apologize.
No, that was good.
It was useful information.
Yeah.
I wish more people will do that.
Yeah.
We like it.
Thanks. Yeah. And I hope I can speak coherently about this because I have a whole stream of frustrations with the process, and that was sort of the angle I was coming from. For example, if you guys have time for this, I've been trying to hire a chef. I recruited an excellent chef. He's working in Alberta now, running a kitchen there, but he's on a closed permit in Alberta. He has to get into the Atlantic immigration pilot, which is one of the streams that's used here. He has to get a certain level on his language test, and he has all the right levels in 4 of the 5 categories, and one category is one level below what he needs. He's got a 4 out of 5 instead of a 5 out of 5, I think, in reading comprehension. But he's running a kitchen in English in Alberta, right?
Yeah.
So it really feels arbitrary sometimes. It's like these rules, I get why they exist. They're trying to make sure we have people coming in with the right kinds of qualities, but they also seem senseless a lot of times. I have several employees of mine that are trying to apply. They want their permanent residency. Hopefully they're looking to apply through the Atlantic immigration program, and it feels like they're just being slow played until their permits expire, and then they're going to be asked to leave. It's hard to run a business like that, and obviously, without question, the real victims are the people whose lives are on hold all the time because they're, they could be starting a family. They're trying to set up their life. Are they going to be here? Are they going to be sent back to Bangladesh or India or wherever they came from in the first place? It's very challenging. And it feels like from the business owner's perspective, because a lot of this stuff falls on us to apply for them and things like that, they don't give you any answers. So it seems like they're just letting these people play out on timeline instead of saying, you know what, we're not going to accept these people. It's not going to work. Instead of saying that, they're just letting the clock tick, maybe being cowards about it. That's just how I feel about it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
that's the impression I get.
It jives a little bit from what we heard from our immigration expert saying they've reduced the ways in which people can get permanent residency. They've made it a little harder, and it seems like they're trying to encourage more people to go back essentially home than stay here through these hoops you have to jump through.
So what does it mean for small businesses like you for Antigonish? Why should Antigonishers worry about this?
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, it's very challenging to find workers. It's been affecting the service industry a lot for a long time. So like I said, I run a restaurant and you could talk to a lot of restaurant owners. It's not that people are trying to prefer immigrants to Canadian citizens or permanent residents. In fact, we are obligated to prefer the permanent residents and the Canadian citizens. But a lot of times, some of those jobs they aren't able to be filled locally. There's just not enough people with the skills to be a qualified cook, for example, or a chef, which is even more difficult. Chief baker. There's lots of roles that we're just unable to fill. And you will have posted for months sometimes trying to get applicants in. Sometimes people come, they don't like it, they can't handle it, whatever the case might be. So it's not like employees are trying to save a few bucks.
Right.
For example, I just applied for a temporary foreign worker. It cost $1,000 to do that. May not work. It's not about necessarily saving money. It's about keeping the business running. Yes.
So am I characterizing this correctly then? Because people think like, oh, you're just trying to save money by hiring foreign people. It's really difficult to get someone, to get an LMIA, to get somebody who's not a permanent resident or Canadian to work. So the only reason you're doing it is simply because you have no other choice. There is no one else available to take the job Canadian.
That's right. Yeah. And to their credit, a lot of these people are fantastic workers. They do a great job. They show up to work. They're there to make the business work. They want to make a life here. So they have all the right motivations. But again, it's not like they're getting preferential treatment over anyone else. They're just the ones that are showing up and being there. And it's not all like that. Obviously, we have lots of Canadians in our employ. Everyone does in this town. So there's no scheme going on there. It's how do you make these businesses work?
So give us a broader sense of, yes, we understand what you are going through, but as a president of Chamber of Commerce, do you see this happening with other members? What are you hearing about that?
I definitely do hear it. Yeah, other restaurant owners, for example, have spoken to several about this. They're having similar issues sometimes. Obviously, it happens all over the place. Like healthcare is a huge industry where we're relying on temporary foreign workers or people from other countries to fill a lot of kinds of roles. Truck driving, retail, hotels, lots of hospitality jobs. It's all over the place, and a lot of people have a lot of complaints about it.
So is this in terms of running a small business, because you're part of the chamber, you deal with a lot of people running local businesses, would you say finding employees is the number one problem? Or what are the top three problems, let's say?
That's a great question, because it really depends on the industry.
Okay.
So I would say it's a big deal for restaurant owners. I spoke last year to a lady who ran a health clinic. She pretty much couldn't operate because she couldn't find workers, and she was trying to use temporary foreign workers and people applying for a permanent residency to get things going because she couldn't find local people to do it, and it just didn't work.
On one hand, you say you have enough demand, but just you don't have people to deliver them. Right. On the other hand, our perception is actually the demand is not there. And the small businesses are suffering.
There's too many of these restaurants, so it's your problem for opening.
Yeah, exactly. And the economy is down, and people can't spend enough money.
It's definitely both those things. I mean, you're caught in a bit of a trap. I would say there is a demand. Let's talk about restaurants. It's something I know fairly well. There's a demand for restaurants. People, will go out to eat. They don't want to pay too much, and that's understandable. None of us do, right? Which is why you can't just say, we'll just pay people more and Canadians will come work. It's not that simple. Like if you ever run a restaurant, you will know the margins are extremely tight. Mm-hmm. And I think over half restaurants, stats released last year, lose money, right? So it's
the hardest business to run anywhere in the world.
There you go. Yeah.
And many restaurants close down. The turnover is really high.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And so it's a very hard business. And so I kind of cringe a bit when I see people online saying things like, we'll just pay them more. Well, I could tell you restaurant owners aren't like sitting on mountains of cash at home and just laughing. It's hard and it's a struggle, and it's one step forward, two steps back, and you have qualified people and they may leave to go to another part of the country, or they take a job in a different industry, or there's any number of reasons things go wrong. The price of products keeps changing. Now you're going along fine and you're trying to watch, and all of a sudden you didn't realize, your food costs have gone up 10%, and now you're losing money where you were making money last month, right? Those things can change really quickly.
What about the turnover? So one of the question also comes up is that many of these temporary people or whoever joins you, they're there because they don't have anything better. That's just the general perception, especially in the frontline, low-paying jobs. So do you face that turnover issues in general with small businesses here?
There is a lot of turnover, yeah, for sure. Some people are leaving they might think they can get better paying jobs in Ontario or Alberta or even in Halifax coming out of here. The restaurant industry is famous for turnover. It's sort of part of the business, but there's a certain level you can manage and a certain level you can't. So it's normal to have staff turnover, like front of house staff, the wait staff. It turns over fairly regularly, but you like to have your core staff that are there. You can take on new staff in the summer, and they're going to come and they're going to go. But it's a challenge. But if you're losing, if you have 6 cooks, for instance, in your restaurant and you lose 2, well, that's a big deal. Sometimes you're shutting down the doors early. Sometimes you're closing. You can't, they need vacation. They might get sick. They might have injury. Any number of reasons. So you're very vulnerable. And it's not like you could just have 8 cooks on your staff because you can't afford to pay 8 cooks. So you have to find that sweet spot, and it's very difficult, and it's very easy for things to go wrong quickly.
So being in Antigonish versus Halifax, for example, when you're trying to find people, is being here a hindrance because it's a smaller town? There are fewer people available when compared to Halifax. Do Halifax restaurants have an easier time hiring?
Or New Glasgow or Truro.
Yeah, how does Antigonish measure up?
I don't think I could answer that competently. I'm not sure because I could say that it'd be easy for me to say that having easier time in Halifax, they might and they might not. I don't know exactly what the challenges are there. We do have some advantages in Antigonish. We have students here. There's a lot of international students that studied at CBU that end up in Antigonish because they have better work opportunities here. Right. So it's sort of been, I don't want to call it a pipeline, but it has been feeding a lot of
inflow.
Yeah. Has been bringing a lot of people looking for employment here. A lot of the times they're on a couple years visa following their studies, so they have a limited amount of time.
Okay, so because that is the thing, because CBU had a ton of their whole paradigm was that we have a lot of foreign people studying here, and then suddenly that got nerfed by legislation, and now they're looking for work. So is that when we see new faces here in town working in retail, is that people who are coming from CBU living in Antigonish?
I would say there's a lot of that going on.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, obviously not entirely, but there definitely are a lot of people coming from Cape Breton to here.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would like to pivot a little and ask more generally, how is small business ecosystem in Antigonish right now? If somebody from elsewhere in Canada comes here and wants to start a business, or even Antigonishers want to start a business, what are the opportunities that are emerging? What are and do we need another pizza shop, or what are those?
Well, I won't speak to what we need or don't need specifically because I wouldn't want to dampen anyone's hopes. But
sure.
Entrepreneurship is really important. People have great ideas, and it's really the lifeblood of the economy. We need more and more people starting businesses. The Antigonish Chamber of Commerce is really mostly small to medium-sized businesses. A lot of small businesses.
How many members do you have?
We have about 240 members.
Wow.
So there's a lot. And, many of them are entrepreneurs. They might be sole proprietorships, like one person, or they may have a couple of staff, 3, 4. It could be a family business. Some businesses have been members for 50, 60 years. It's all different sorts of things. So we have a great membership, but these small businesses, they bring employment, they bring money to the community, they bring opportunities. There's always different and interesting things starting, people selling salt, for example, and, people starting up, the seasoning station over on James Street. It's really cool kind of businesses that can be done and can be successful and are exciting. In terms of what supports are available, I think we could do a better job of streamlining that. And that's something the Chamber is actually working on. We're not the shop to help you start up a business, but and we're working carefully to make sure we're not doing things that are sort of out of our mandate. But we are the place to say, okay, here's where you can go. So ACOA, the Atlantic Canadian Opportunity Agency, funds a bunch of places.
Can you say a bit more about ACOA? People don't know about that.
Sure. Well, ACOA is a federally funded organization that's dedicated to promoting opportunities in Atlantic Canada, really.
Right.
And so they receive federal funding to help do different things. Like if you have a business that's going to grow and you want to start exporting to other parts of the country, for example, or outside of the country, they may be able to help fund with grants or low interest loans, things like that. So it's an important organization. They fund these other smaller organizations called CBDCs. Don't ask me what that acronym stands for right now. I can't tell you. So we have one that covers sort of Antigonish and Glasgow area. Joanne and Shannon are the contacts from there. They're fantastic. They offer small business loans for startups. They offer a bunch of training opportunities, for free. Learn how to run Sage, learn management practices for a small business, leadership. There's a bunch of courses they offer for free, actually, which are great for getting started up. But, you can't start a business with nothing. You can't just say, I want $100,000. Can you give it to me? I want to open a new pizza shop, or whatever the case might be. You need some collateral. You need some money, and that's hard for people, as you guys know as well as anyone, people are struggling. They're not coming in with a lot of money. So how do you find that, that 20%? It's like buying a house. You need to have your down payment more or less.
What do you, when people are interested in starting a business, what would you say to them as in terms of Antigonish being an attractive place? Like, what is it about here that makes it a good place to start a business, for example?
That's a great question. I think really community minded, like people will help you out here. For example, like I posted about this online a couple of months ago, but a lot of people don't realize, for example, the restaurants, if I run out of something, I'll call the Brownsville, the Maritime Inn, or anyone and say, do you have any more of these? And they'll send someone over. I'll go grab it, right? And we share these kinds of things all the time. It's not like we want each other to fail.
No?
Okay. No, we're happy to have each other. I mean, obviously,
Right.
We're all trying to see, we're competing for the same customers, but by and large, it's like, this is a great community where a lot of businesses can survive. And I think that attitude is prevalent throughout the community.
Amazing.
We have a Antigonish Tourism Association. The hotels help each other out. We have text groups and things like that. Are you full tonight? We're full, but people are looking for room. Can you hand them, and people are like, yes, I have extra rooms. Please send them our way. So that kind of collaboration is important and good. And it's not just those industries. I know that exists in a lot of places. So that spirit is there. There's great opportunities. There's good people around. And I think people want to support small business.
And there's just mentioned, there's a new business that started on Main Street where the Curious Cat moved from.
The clay fire one.
Yeah. And, I just went in there and it
So
was
cool.
full and buzzing.
Yeah.
Many people thought, this town cannot sustain a bookshop, and Curious Cat is doing amazingly well.
Yeah, he's
And-
doing a
and
great
it's
job on the
so-
I thought the same thing about that because I didn't understand, like, you go in there and you paint some stuff, and I'm like, well, people will go there once and that's it. Like, they're going to be out of business in 3 months, I thought. But then we talked to the students.
wrong you were.
I was fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
It's very popular, and the students love it, and they're repeat customers. And now I've been there multiple times.
Exactly.
So
And you remember the vice presidents who came from Santa Fe talked about lack of third spaces.
and that's a perfect third space.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I was there once picking up my kid. I didn't know anything about it either. And I'm like, wow, this place is so cool.
Yeah.
And they had a great time, a little birthday party there. It was awesome.
So what are the challenges? Because now we know the advantages of this town. What are the unique challenges you'd say for Antigonish in terms of opening a business here that's maybe different from other
Or
places?
sustaining them, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So a lot of them are common. The money is always a big deal. Starting a small business is very difficult. There's so many stressors. You'd have to almost talk to a bunch of business owners, like what's stressing you, but there's just a myriad of things and it's almost hard to list. I often think if someone asks me what I do all day, I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of different every day, but like I'm, spending hours applying for immigration programs. I'm trying to get funding to do this. I'm talking to the bank to do this and making sure we have money to make payroll. But that's just one day. I'm also trying to renovate this pool and I'm trying to renovate the restaurant and do advertising. So
Or
you're
finding a plumber. to-
yeah, well, that's exactly right. Or finding a plumber or electrician or anything, right? These are difficult things, and you're going in one direction. Like I've been trying to do solar install on the roof of my hotel, and I get close to it. I'm kind of 90% there, and then a bunch of other things happen. I drop it, and so to get back into that, you got to sort of bone up on it all over again and read about it. So there are a bunch of challenges, and they're sort of idiosyncratic to the business. And like anywhere else, I think what Antigonish could use is maybe clarity on where the sports are. So we have Nova Scotia Works that can help. We have Noble, we can help you. It's not always obvious where you should go to start. And I think the chamber could help a little bit with that and say, here's where you go to start. You talk to these people, talk to these people. That may depend on what kind of businesses you're going to run. And I've heard people complain about other things too, like, your property, your municipal taxes on your structure, you might be paying that from the year one. So if you build a business that's worth $5 million and maybe your tax bill that first year is $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, you're not making any money yet. That's hard. So it'd be nice to have breaks at those entry points.
Yeah, when you talk about small businesses, as you said, 240, and it's an impressive number, and yet, in theory, every fisherman or woman, run a small business. Every, carpenter shop runs a small businesses. Even Let's Talk Antigonish is a small business.
That's true.
Right? And so the ecosystem of small businesses is very diverse and very large, and only fraction of them are right now a member. set of members.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we are always interested in broadening our membership and having input from different people. And, they have to find value in the chamber. No one has to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. But
So what is that value that you offer to the members if people want to answer, ask that question?
Great question. I think the first thing is strength in numbers, like any sort of association. And we've been working hard to find our voice in the past couple of years to be more of an advocacy organization. I think that really came to the fore when we had all this construction issues going on in town at the end of last year.
Right.
It was really devastating to...
How real was the damage?
Oh, it was immense. And it's, again, that's another thing that's hard to explain to people if you're not the one running that business. For example, one of our members, she's on the board, is the Plum Tree. She runs a shop on Main Street. If you don't have that traffic in December, when people are doing their Christmas shopping and they can access you easily, and it's easy for people to say, well, I can't get there, I'll go somewhere else, or I'll go over to Negasco. And, they're not their fault. They got things to do. They don't want to spend an hour in traffic, but all those losses can add up for people in a big way. And maybe December is a month that someone makes enough money to cover the rest of the years because January and February are terribly slow, right? So those things are really challenged. Same as if you hit a hotel in July or a restaurant in July, that's sometimes your busiest month. If you lost that month, that can be devastating, right? And affects the whole year. So you got to think those things through. And, one thing we did was got the word out when council had an emergency meeting about that and got a lot of people to show up and made our voices heard and said, we have to put a stop to this, put it on pause, let us get through Christmas, let people make their payroll, and then start this up another time when it's more convenient. And luckily they were able to listen to that.
So in theory, all the small businesses that run out of, say, farmers market or Lockerberg growers or let's talk Antigonish, all those can be your members.
Definitely they can, yeah. So, and there's that networking opportunity.
And what is the cost for that?
I don't have it in front of me. Like, it depends. It's on our website. If you go there and you click on membership, it depends on the size of your business, right? So it could be as low as, I think there's a price for an individual, but that's not actually a business. The next one up, it might be around $135. It's not huge. Yeah, it's a yearly thing. And I hope I'm not misquoting that one.
No, that's okay.
If it's wrong. It's in that zone anyway. And we have other, so we do lots of networking opportunities. We have speakers in talking about, this, how to save money on your energy bills or how to do social media marketing. We had someone help with headshots so people can up their LinkedIn profiles, for example. So we do things that are added value to businesses that a small business wouldn't necessarily be able to do on their own because they either don't have the time or the resources or the energy to think about those things. So that's a value add. We have one thing that's really popular. Our members is a health benefits plan, which is open to all chamber members across the country. So it's like a group plan they can get into, and it's sort of access to a health plan that you wouldn't necessarily have if you're a two-person business, for example.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason why we should actually.
To get
you are covered, I'm not. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm monopolizing the question. Sorry. Just
No, well, I'll give you one. So this is the magic wand question. If you could wave a magic wand and fix something or a few things so that it's easier to start a business, and that could be anything, like federal legislation, provincial, something that the town is doing, the infrastructure in the town, anything at all. You could change a few things. What would be a few changes you could make that would make it so much easier to start a business here?
I think if someone in the startup scenario, really it's the access to low interest capital.
Okay.
That's really the thing. I know it's an obvious answer, but people need money to start a business. It's very expensive and complicated too.
And what interest rate do you pay typically in a small business?
I think you would be looking, like the programs that are available that help people have interest rates as low as like maybe between 4% and 5%. So it's fairly low. But if you're at a traditional bank and you're a startup and you're not known, you may be paying 9 or 10%. And then those numbers, if you do the math and those, which anyone can do at home or look it up online, that's a huge difference.
So easier access to startup money somehow at a lower interest rate.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, that's not
but you need a solid business plan. It's not and collaterals
and collateral. That, right? You can't just get random money with nothing.
Yeah. That's right. So that's hard. The collateral piece is hard, and business plan is extremely important. Obviously, there are places that will help you with that. So I would talk to Noble and Nova Scotia Works and say, what can I do? How can you help me?
So Noble is located here as well.
Yes, they have an office above the credit union in Antigonish, and they
support.
But they're fantastic, and it's not like a call center in Ottawa that's gonna, maybe you're gonna get a robot for 20 minutes on the phone. Versus you call them, and you talk to a person, and they'll meet with you and they'll chat with you, and it's very.
I want to ask another question, Justin, if you allow. there's a perception that Antigonish population is aging, and so is the business owners population, and so you transited from in the next generation business owner. Is that normal that people take on their parents' businesses, or is that an issue that comes up often?
It is very normal. It's and that's a nice advantage that some of us enjoy, which is unfortunately precluded for a lot of people. If your parents didn't own a business, it's much harder to get in, right? So you do see it a lot around town that children, if they're interested, will end up taking over their parents' business. But a lot of us never thought we'd do this or expected this. Like I studied philosophy, I have a PhD in philosophy. I teach a little bit. Like I was working for a union actually, so. Very random path, end up back here and, love it and enjoy it and find it challenging and intriguing. But, people have all different paths.
So you've seen a number of businesses as a chamber person or just someone living here. What would you say are the easiest and the hardest businesses to start? It sounds like restaurants are a huge gamble. But like, what are the ones you've seen crop up? You're like, oh yes, we know this was going to be a success, and it was a success. That just all makes sense. Versus one where you're like, oh, these are hard.
And who would have imagined that Peace by Chocolate will
for
start
example
here?
Yeah.
I think that's hard to predict. The restaurant things, people can be very successful at it, but it's usually like a labor of love. Like if you don't love that, don't even think about it. I would say because you have to work the restaurant a lot to be able to make it profitable, and it's challenging. But obviously, if you love it, and we have so many great restaurants here, I feel like we're pretty blessed to have these cool places in town to go to eat and have a drink, and we have brew pubs, and all of them are challenging, but they're all really cool spots. And the owners, you can meet them; they're often serving you, and they're really cool people, and they have interesting stories. So, when I'm like something like you said earlier, Justin. I often get nervous. I see people starting like, oh, wow, that looks challenging. And then I'm like so I got to shut up about it because I'm like so impressed and surprised that they're successful. I'm like, yes, like you followed your passion. You did all this work and look, you're running a chocolate business out of Antigonish, or you're running a Claymore Café or a bookstore. When bookstores are going out of, business all over the place, it's so cool to see them. So I don't make predictions.
So there's no magic formula or magic bullet.
I don't see it. No, there is
Antigonish magic.
What is that now? Is it you?
As you said, there is a community-mindedness.
Oh, that is true.
And people showed up when I remember, Peace by Chocolate, first Tarek and his father was there at the farmer's market. And there was a lineup saying, okay, great, we'll buy these chocolates.
You're not wrong.
And, we often ask this question in global sense, what is the gender proportion of, small businesses ownership, and how are they represented?
Fantastic question.
Gender, did you say?
Yeah, because often it's considered to be male dominated in many places.
Paul he's bringing out statistics. I see a chart.
Yeah, but the chamber's actually been working on a strategic plan, which we haven't released yet, but we did do a study. And I don't know if I have the answer to that particular question because I don't know if that was asked, although it is really interesting. And that would have been not necessarily startups, but existing businesses.
Yeah.
There are a lot of female-led businesses in Antigonish, a lot of very small businesses, like a lot of healthcare providers. I'm thinking of my wife's a massage therapist. She has her own business. There are a lot of people that are in those sorts of roles, not just massage, but chiropractic or anything like that, that have small businesses. Trendy shoes. There's the shop on Main Street I talked about earlier, Plumtree, Happiness. A lot of these are
I heard the statistics. I'm not sure how true that is that over 70% of the businesses have women as owner or co-owners in Antigonish, which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
but it'll be fun to confirm that.
And even on the chamber board, I would say we are 80% women right now. So, and they're playing a huge leadership role. I'm quite certain the next president will probably be a woman. So, and the last one was, so that's no competition there. So there definitely is a leadership role being played by the women in this community.
And, the business school here, we have lots of graduates coming out there.
We do, yeah. And the new dean, she seems, I think I have her title right, but she seems fantastic. She really wants to work together. So we tend to be collaborating with them to build things, have opportunities for their students to collaborate with our businesses. Right. We've worked with them on different projects in the past, but I think there's a lot more that can be done.
Yeah.
And if I can, and this wasn't asked, but I'm going to say it anyways, I think it would be nice to see a little more of like a strategic plan for this community in terms of the business interests, right?
And would you like to take a lead in that?
Well, we, in our own strategic plan for the chamber, we have been very careful trying to delineate where we are leaders and where we are partners, because it's very easy for us to try to do everything and be everything to everybody and be nothing to anybody, you know. So we would definitely be interested in partnering on something like that. You know, you need your municipal partners like the town and the county involved heavily in that. But we have to think in the business community and the business school. Cinevex is huge here, obviously, but where are we going and how can we help bring in these new businesses? Like make sure that people have these really cool ideas. They stay in Antigonish and make them happen here. We want that so bad.
I remember I asked this question of Andrew Murray a long time ago. I'm like, is the town council involved in any way in deciding what kinds of businesses to encourage? And he's like, no, we're completely hands off. That's up to the business community. But what you're saying, and this is what I would think that this town needs, is a vision for the kinds of businesses we would like to see, or maybe the way we could change Main Street so it's more,
or create that imagination.
Yes, some grand vision. But you're saying that is something you're considering as the chamber.
That's something I think that we want to be pushing to make sure it happens. I don't want to commit to how much role we'll play, but I definitely see that as something we need to make happen. And maybe it's, some sort of analysis, something like what Cody does with their asset-based community development, right? Like, what do we have here that we can rely on? I know I'm in the tourism industry. We have an amazing tourism product, which is underdeveloped, and we're working on that. But it's not like we need more nightclubs. We have people want to be outside and experience Quebec Mountain or go biking in Cape George or visit the lighthouse or the falls and areas. Like, there's so much cool stuff here. The gentleman started these Lock Harbor Lake Lodges out there. It's beautiful properties, just one of many I'm thinking of.
Shout out to Jennifer. And Scott.
Not Jennifer and Scott. I was just going to mention them too, though. They have access on there at the Firelock, right? They're also in Lock Harbor. Yeah. So these are really cool properties, like really cool ideas, and people starting this business in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, so to speak. I mean, I'm not dissing Lock Harbor. It's amazing, but it's far out. Yeah. So, but good for them. Like, they make this work and they pour their passion into it, and they're really cool. And she runs it's a social enterprise thing there too.
Yes, on that, I was wanting to ask that question. Can I just?
Yeah. Then we'll wrap up after this. Yeah.
I did want to.
Go ahead.
I didn't want to miss too that there is some groups working on things too. So Ignite, which is out of New Glasgow, they cover this area and they do like networking and coaching opportunities, and they're really important. And there is a group started here in town called The Leap, which my wife Renee Curry is involved in, along with Sean Sears and several other people, and they are doing like peer-to-peer coaching for businesses, helping them get started. So there's a lot of that kind of cool stuff happening. Like, they've worked a lot with Elvira's Kitchen, for example. I'm sure you guys know her product. She's an amazing chef, often at the farmers market, there's those sort of incubation things happening. We just got to keep it going.
Just on the idea of social enterprises, and I know our credit union has supported that idea provincially, not just here. And for those who don't understand social enterprise in a very nutshell, the idea is you can make money but also do social good at the same time. Those don't have to be separate objectives. And when you create that intentionality around social objective, you can become a social enterprise. So what is that ecosystem here, and is that something that we want to develop? For example, New Dawn group of companies in Sydney run 17 companies. 80% of their revenue comes from their business activity that supports their social purpose enterprises. Yeah. So is that something that we can think of in Antigonish?
Well, I think it is definitely something to think a lot about. It would be great to talk to Jennifer and Scott sometimes about how they run Firelock, because they know a lot about it. I know the Naomi Society is looking at social enterprise model, starting perhaps I don't want to speak for them, but a furniture, what's the right word for it?
Like recycle furniture.
Upcycling.
Yeah. So there's really cool opportunities like that, and they could be amazing. And I will say, not to pat the business community on their back, but they are donating money to so many things all the time. You'd be really amazed at the amount of requests coming into all these small businesses. Can you give me $50 for this, $100 for this, gift cards for that? And which is fine. Like, there's, it's a part of life of small business, but the community is very generous, giving all the time, and so many different causes going on all the time, and they're happy to do it. And I'm really sort of proud of all the businesses here for participating in that all the time because they often don't have a ton of money, but they're doing it anyway.
Yeah. So I think we should wrap up, but Paul, I'll give you the last word. So if there's a message you had to all of Antigonish, who's listening, obviously, about either the chamber or starting a small business, opportunities or challenges, or just something we haven't touched on yet, what would it be?
Great question. I think entrepreneurship is really amazing. It's does so much for the economy. If you read things like the Ivan Report, we need entrepreneurs in this province and we need to build them and support them. So make that idea happen. Talk to the chamber, talk to Noble, talk to Nova Scotia Works, figure out how to make that happen because really, small business is the lifeblood of this community. They do so much and we need more. We really need more to make it happen and make this a really thriving and amazing place.
Awesome. That's a great final sentiment.
Yeah. And you have an office right here in the library.
We do, yeah. But it will be
Next
the
door.
office. Yeah, it's not usually me sitting around there. We have an executive director coming in. She'll be starting in a couple months. We're super excited to have her. And actually delayed because of immigration problems. So her
full
husband,
circle.
Yeah, her husband and daughter are Canadian citizens. She's a U.S. citizen, but they're like super pumped to be here.
Awesome.
And we're really happy to have
Thank
her
you for
soon.
coming out
Yeah.
and touching on so many diverse issues. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks for great questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Antigonish. If you like the podcast, don't hesitate to subscribe. Just go to letstalkantigonish.ca and click. Voila! You'll receive new episodes right in your email inbox.
This podcast is a labor of love. Please consider making a contribution, small or large, maybe a monthly subscription.
A thank you to all of our supporters and subscribers, especially our paid subscribers through the Substack. You are really helping us to keep this podcast going, and we look forward to expanding it in the future. Let's talk, Antigonish.